Hi guys, so welcome to Potential Hit Coach. Our next podcast is with someone I've been wanting on for a while, an absolute legend of the sport, a monster of the sport. So this is Jean-Pierre Fux. So hi John, how are you?
Hi, nice to be here. Love to be here. Looking forward to this hour.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for doing this, by the way.
No problem.
So if we could, Jean-Pierre, could we just start with sort of what got you into bodybuilding and then how your career sort of panned out from there?
So I always wanted to be an athlete. When I was younger, bodybuilding was not on my mind. I tried everything. Soccer was my first choice. Ice hockey. I even was planning on possibly riding in the Tour de France someday.
All right.
It all changed when I was about 10, 11 years old, when I went to the local pool. It was a big local pool, up to 2,000 people a day. And the lifeguard was a middleweight Swiss bodybuilding champion.
Right.
When I saw the guy, I was in awe. This is how I wanted to look like.
Yeah.
So I had no doubt I want to be a bodybuilder. Everything else I put aside. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed into the local gym. There was an age limit or minimum of 15. So I asked my grandfather, said, look, I want to be a bodybuilder. So he gave me some kind of an expander, to kind of expand and something to push together. And I did endless push-ups, chin-ups, but it didn't really work. So it didn't really, there was even a couple of guys in my class, they looked better than me without doing anything. And I know I hated this one guy, Marcus, like with this big chest, So with 15, I finally had my first workout. And I went in there with my cousin, and I went into this first workout when they asked you, what you want to do, why you're here, I was like, I want to be a world championship bodybuilder. The guy totally ignored me, said, this guy is nuts. The guy had huge arms, and I kept staring at his arms. I was so in awe. He was a light heavyweight champion in Switzerland at the time. And at some point he told me, stop staring at my arms, So we had the first workout, me and my cousin and I. And after the workout, we went around the corner and I said, wow, this is unbelievable. Did you feel that? And my cousin was just looking at me, said, let's go back tomorrow. So he laughed at me and I never seen him again, So I was there the next day, actually, for my next workout. So from early on, I had a pretty structured workout. I was not wasting a year or two, and not knowing what I'm doing. Yeah. And it was a very interesting gym. He was in the mountains of Switzerland, near the Matterhorn. I know that might be the most famous thing we have down in the south. And we had this assembly of bodybuilders with unbelievable body parts. We didn't have really, with one exception, a complete bodybuilder, but we had the guy with the monster chest, we had the guy with the monster legs. So I designed my program I asked the guy with the legs, how do you train your legs?
Yeah,
how do you train your back? And I designed my program like that. And from pretty much early on, I had a really good workout split. The only thing I didn't know is about the food, the eating, of course. But about 6 months in, I felt like I want to compete. So my body grew from day one on.
Right.
I saw this ad, Beginner Swiss Championships, and I truly believed I am really good. Just really good. So I organized a trip with a friend. My friend competed too. My friend worked out a few years, so he was a little bit more advanced than me. And of course, it was an absolute disaster. I lost place, 16 years old. The age category was up to 21. And I remember to have told my parents, you're going to have to see, I'm going to bring home a trophy. My parents didn't know what to make of this bodybuilding thing. My father was extremely disappointed because I quit soccer. Right. So he really, soccer is something he could brag, to his friends. My friend, my son, made 3 goals and all of that stuff. Bodybuilding, he didn't know. He constantly tried to kind of leaves me out to move for my friends when my muscles were growing. You know, it's like, hey, you should go move. You know, you should go work construction. I was so angry. I remember I just told them, this is just show. You know, this is I'm going to be a bodybuilding professional. So I placed 4th out of 4. And believe me, the other 3 weren't that good either, but they were just clearly better than me. So on the way out, I stole a trophy. I knew I gotta have to show something at home, you know.
Yeah.
So it was not even my weight class or anything. It's just the first trophy I found, I took home and I put it right on the table, you know. It's just here, as I won. Pretty much 2 minutes later, the phone was ringing. The Swiss Bodybuilding Federation said, your son stole a trophy.
Oh.
Yeah. So what I did realize, I need a few years of training. So I started to talk to the bigger bodybuilders, and it was kind of a common theme was you work hard 5 years. That was kind of the number going on. You work 5 years. Yeah. Not even think of any enhancement or anything like that. Yeah. Although I wouldn't have known, you know, where to get anything like that anyway. So I worked out for 4 years and became pretty much a monster without any steroids or anything. Yeah. And then 4 years later, I went to the biggest show in Middle Europe. It was the Grand Prix of Lucerne. Momo Benaziza won that 2 years before. Right. And the overall winner was usually very, very great international bodybuilder. Yeah. And I placed 2nd in the overall. Oh, wow. Yeah. So then I went to the Swiss Championships. I remember when I went to Lucerne, what was also a qualifier for the Swiss Championships, we had 24 juniors in my category, and nobody showed up for the Swiss Championship. Wow. That just is over. And Lee Haney was the guest poser. Lee Haney had so much fun. He couldn't believe that I'm a junior. So that was my first 5 years. I won my Swiss championships. And this was in 1989. Right. After I left stage, having won the junior Swiss championship, they told me to go for the qualifier for the world championships, man. Right. They took a team of 4. I said, I can't do that. I'm a junior, you know. And yeah. I looked at those men. They looked backstage. They looked much bigger than me, in my mind at least. Yeah. So, okay, I was pretty much pushed on stage and made the Swiss national team. And went to Paris. It was a good and bad experience at the same time. It was, in a sense, I didn't place top 15. It was very competitive. You know, the classes went through very, very fast. There were 30, 40 competitors. They pretty much chose 15 people in with 5 minutes. Right. But I did realize backstage that this is more than doable. You know, we're talking about the Mr. Universe now, the Amateur World Championships. I wasn't too much in awe of this. I knew I need about 2 or 3 years, and I can absolutely do this. Mm. The biggest problem still was at that point, I didn't have a coach or anything other than asking people in the gym. Yeah. So I trained another 3 years, and then 4 years actually later, I went to South Korea to the Mr. Universe again. And unfortunately, again, did it on my own. I had one friend I asked, he said, look, you have to do much longer diets. You have to be on diet for 6-7 months. And so I did that. But of course, 4 months before the World Championship, I was in top shape. Yeah. You know, I didn't need this much time. I didn't really know what to do. I lost a tremendous amount of weight and went totally undersized to Korea. Gunther Schlierkopf won in Korea. But I knew 100%. There's no way if I just look halfway decent that I would not win the Mr. Universe. Right. Next year, although I over-dieted again a little bit, I just knew if I'm halfway right. And I went to Shanghai, China. But that was a brutal year. There was this guy from Cyprus, Agathokleos. Right. He did the Honors Classic a year later. He won overall a year after me. He was very, very, very close. And then there was a guy from Jordan, Mustafa. Yeah. So sport.
Mustafa Mohammed, was it? Or
correct.
Yeah.
Huge legs. I think he lived in the UK, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, huge legs, both of them. And I was behind after the prejudging. So it was over 2 days. And we had a national coach, although I didn't really work with the guy much before the show, but he's, you gotta be drier. But they had strict diuretic tests and drug tests, so I couldn't just take a diuretic because they told us, although the tests are on day one, if we see any big changes in a guy, we will retest them. Right. And it would have been beyond this embarrassing to miss a drug test, Yeah. So we just we just post all night. We just post the whole night through, 9 hours without a break. He was counting 10 each pose and just posing. I was so hard in the morning. And as you guys know, usually the result from the prejudging didn't change. Yeah. So there was just coming quickly out, do all the poses, the top 6, and then 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So suddenly they started comparing us again. So, and it turned into my favor. I won by having more first places at the end, same points as Agathocleos. Right. So then I won, that's what won me the pro card, because I won the overall. Yeah. Back then, the overall was also the direct qualifier for the Mr. Olympia. So I was qualified for the 95 Olympia in Atlanta. I thought I need more time. In retrospect, a big mistake. So I flew to Atlanta to watch the Mr. Olympia. And I knew it was a mistake. I should have competed. I could have made top 10 here for sure. So then in 96, I wasn't qualified anymore. Right. So I went to the Arnold's Classic. And again, that's kind of a theme through my whole career. I didn't have any coaches. I don't know. I felt like I kind of figured out this myself. Yeah. And I felt like I'm much bigger than everybody else. So who really is going to? But it wasn't about that. I needed somebody to dial me in for the shows. Yeah. Yeah. So I had my workout partner, and I was a little bit in shape too early, so kept the weight up, and then we decided kind of together. We're not going to take diuretics. I said, you were very, very hard at the Amateur World Championships, at the Mr. Universe. So diuretics is just going to flat you out. And I went to the Arnold's Classic not knowing what to expect. Although I seen the 95 Olympia. It was pretty far away. And I seen some professionals guest pose. I was, Switzerland is a country of pretty low confidence when it comes to measuring up with the best in the world. So the word was, you forget it. You won the Mr. Universe, okay, but professional, this is something so different, And so I remember as I walked backstage, first of all, I was very surprised how short everybody is, It's like men were walking around, and they seemed pretty tiny to me. Right. They all did, but I didn't really. So the night before, I was in my hotel room, and one of the judges came to my hotel room, and he started to scream and yell and get the whole hotel together. And one after another, I think Wayne DeMiglia was also. They came to my hotel room, said, "Look at this guy; he has never seen anything like it." And Wayne DeMiglia, I remember, said, if he can dry out a little bit, he's a real threat tomorrow. But of course. Know how to do that. I was too heavy the next day, didn't place too well. But I also remember after the prejudging, I went back to the hotel room, and they showed some footage on the regional TV channel about backstage footage. Mm-hmm. And I've seen this huge guy in the middle of all those little guys walking around, And I realized, oh my God, this is me. I was so much bigger than anybody else, maybe with the exception of Paul Dillette, but other than that. And the show was absolutely brutal. I mean, Sean Ray plays 5th. Yeah. Andy Münzer plays 6th. And then there's Porter Cortrell, who I think won the Night of Champions. He was also 7th. And Churlock, who was very, very good 8th. And I only placed 9th. Right. But I got the attention of Joe Weider. he was backstage. He's like, you got to compete next week. You got to go to San Jose, you know, to qualify for the Mr. Olympia.
Okay.
So in San Jose, the top 3 would have qualified, possibly 4 if the top 3 already qualified. And pretty much anybody other than Flex Wheeler, who plays second at the Arnold's, went to San Jose.
Right.
And I don't know if you guys heard the story, what happened that week. You know, in the airplane, I couldn't digest my food. I had a small sandwich on the airplane, and I had like a rock on the right side of my stomach.
Right.
This was the day after the Arnold's Classic, and I thought I'm dying. You know, it's just so I called the flight attendant, and they were even thinking about emergency landing that plane. But they got me into LA, and in LA they were waiting there. Not the emergency personnel, the police was waiting for me there.
Right.
I remember it. There, do you have any illegal substances? They probably called, there's this monster here on this plane.
Yeah.
Something is wrong. And I remember Flex Wheeler was on the plane, and Flex said to me, did you take diuretics? I said, no, I did not, but it was absolute the truth. And he's like, oh, you're fine, you know. He said, you're fine. So as I saw the police and I felt better, I went back to the hotel room, but it started again. It was so bad. And at 2 a.m., we called through the hotel, we called the doctor. This Middle Eastern guy in a turban, and I'm a Swiss mountain guy, you know. I don't come across too many Middle Eastern guy in a turban, you know. Came to our hotel room like at 3 a.m. and I thought, I'm dead. Oh my God, you know. This guy here is so he realized right away what's going on. He gave me, what I remember, some black coal pills. You know, and he said, you for the next 4 or 5 days, you know, you can only drink juices and no apple juice. You cannot eat any food. I said, that's not possible. I have to go to a show. He says, well, you can try, you know, but that's what you take those pills and you only drink juices. Right. So here I was, you know, Joe Weider waiting for me to qualify for the Olympia. And I'm in a hotel room drinking juices for the next few days. And so I did. And I remember about Thursday, I tried a little bit of rice, but I felt it again on my stomach. Friday, I finally started eating. And Saturday in San Jose, I was in the best shape of my life.
Right, so it worked well.
So, no, but all the shows I did before are based on a system I saw in a German bodybuilding magazine. It was called Barry DeMay, my last week before the show.
Ah, okay.
So I just did that one-on-one, and I remember it included, I have no idea, I never talked to Barry if this was accurate or not, I just saw the magazine. It was based on dropping salt 3 days before, and then dropping water up to the show, and that's exactly where my body started to flatten out and lose all the qualities he had when I started to drop the water. But for some reason, I never really figured out that it was like the holy cow to me. Don't eat salt. Yeah. I probably, I don't know if I got in some way salt before San Jose. I was round and full and great. I only placed 5th. Roland Churluk was in the shape of his life. So he placed 4th, and the top 3 were pretty much given with Vince Taylor, Paul Dillette, and Kevin Lebroni. Okay. So Joe Weider asked me to come to his office the next day, and this is always a big moment in any athlete's life when you go to that office the first time. You know, this could be life-changing potentially. At that time, I had a Ultimate Nutrition sponsoring contract, what also included selling some products in Switzerland. It was not a big deal for me, and I made very, very good money with that contract. You know, $50,000-$60,000 a year. Okay. And Joe Weider, he usually offered that $24,000 standard entry contract. Right. And through the translator, I said, in Switzerland, you cannot even eat with that. So he's like, okay, take it or leave it, you know. Yeah. But what I can offer you, I can offer you an invitation for the Mr. Olympia. All right, okay. When you look at the history of invitations for the Olympia, I think nobody ever placed top 10 who was invited before that. You know, Lou Ferrigno got an invitation. So I didn't know if that was a great idea, but having missed the year before, I couldn't really miss another year.
Yeah.
So I had this plan that, okay, I'm going to use theoretics this time, the first time. I'm going to try out, be a little bit harder, and I'm going to have a shot for the top 6 here.
Yeah.
So then we got this letter that they're going to theoretic test the show.
Of course.
So in 96, it was a very weird year. A lot of people were slightly a little bit off. Even Dorian was smaller than usual. You know,
Right.
I think we all were a little bit scared of this diuretic test.
Right.
I took some natural diuretics, but over dieted, went to the show and placed only 8.
Right.
But okay, you know, the top 10 automatically qualified for the next Olympia. It was all good. And since it was a very shrunken down version of me compared to the Arnold's Classic, so I had big hopes going into 97. 97, everything looked great. And again, this Barry Dumay, my last week, kind of.
Still did it.
Yeah, everything was great till about Wednesday, and then I flattened totally out again, placed only 7th, but it was a pretty brutal year. Lee Priest was in the best shape of his life, placing 6th, and I beat him and Paul Dillette in the finale, you know, with points. I was 5th in the finale.
Right.
I think, okay, my career is somewhat on the right path.
Yeah.
I chose to go to the 98 Arnold's, and there was a very surreal experience. I went home and started the prep pretty much immediately. You know, as I started dieting down, so around Christmas time or a little earlier, I lacked any motivation. I was so tired. I don't understand it, you know. Now it's finally, we already knew around Christmas time who was competing at the Arnold's because you had to be invited. So I knew from the people placed ahead of me is only Flex Wheeler and Nasser. Flex, nobody really knew after he didn't compete in 97 and he had the car accident before that. Nobody knew how good he still is. Although he did win the 97 Arnold's. So I don't have a legit shot to be minimum in the top 3. Yeah. But I had absolutely no motivation. My food and my body was tired. I had to eat massive amount of foods just to keep my weight.
Okay.
And then with the lack of motivation, my brain started to play tricks on me, you know, started to tell me, you need to have more cheat meals, you know, that will get you back up. And I used to eat massive cheat meals, really massive cheat meals, and then feeling guilty again, doing far too much cardio. So almost like a little bit of I think a psychiatrist is what I needed at that time more than anything else. So I went to the Arnold's Classic, and for the very first time in my career, you could see a slight extension of my stomach.
Right.
And it was purely, I mean, one reason was always the lack of focus on stage.
Yeah.
And the wrong practicing in posing. I'll get back to that a little later. But the first time you could see I had problem controlling my stomach. And at the same time, a book was released in Germany by Dr. Beuker about the side effects of GH, and he took my body, my picture of my body without the face on the front of the book, the cover.
Right.
And he said, this is what GH does to you. And I felt this is weird because I hardly took any GH.
Right.
Not that I didn't want to. This was so expensive in Switzerland. You know, it's like 4 units was $250, $300 a day. And very often we couldn't get the pharmaceutical stuff. So for a little bit, I took some crap stuff from Russia. Who knows what that was? Yeah. But hardly ever. As an amateur, I never took any GH. And then as a 96, a little bit, 97, but very, very little. Right. So I found it hard to believe, but I took it as a fact. Okay, the GH now. But it was clearly just the overeating. You know, that was all it was. Yeah. Wrong food sources, too many wheat products, visceral fat started to kind of build up. Yeah. So the first time, and I remember having a lunch with Steve Weinberger and Dorian Yates in New York a few months later, where Weinberger mentioned, you got to control your midsection a little better. Because I was clearly the third best bodybuilder on stage there. I was in the first call out with Flex and Nasser. But when you saw the judges, they had to release the scorecards. I was everywhere ranked from 3rd to 8th. Especially 2 judges had me on 8, so only one was scratched. And her comment was, the guy is not controlling his stomach.
Right.
So I knew to work on that, and I was very, very motivated suddenly for the 98 Olympia for the reason alone that Dorian decided mid-year that he will not compete anymore.
Yeah.
And now we're needing a new Mr. Olympia. So I'm back into off-season, looked absolutely my absolute best. About 4 weeks before the show, I did a guest posing in northern Germany. I met a young German bodybuilder who wasn't professional yet, with massive arms. I mean, humongous arms. I'm not going to say any name, you will later understand why. Okay. He later on competed as a pro, massive arms. So I said, well, how the hell? But my arms are always kind of like lacking a little bit. I said, what the hell? And he says, oh, I got this stuff, you know. I mean, wow, you just injected into your arms. And right. And the arm didn't look like too weird.
Yeah.
Can you ship me that to Switzerland? Oh, absolutely, no problem. You know, just, he kind of told me how he does it. And, you know, so 4 weeks before I got that stuff in the mail, and let's do a little test shot. So I took about 2 cc's and injected into my biceps. And first of all, just when I saw the bottle, you know, it was not clean. It was like a cleaning bottle, you know, it's
right.
No rubber at the top, and it's ridiculous to even touch anything like that.
Yeah.
But right away when I injected it, I felt I started coughing, and the stuff smelled like alcohol. So I started coughing, wasn't too concerned, coughed a little more, was waiting, and from minute to minute, I was like somebody like strangling me. So I couldn't breathe anymore. And it gotten to a degree where I knew I'm in big trouble here.
Yeah.
I lived far countryside. There was no hospital for about, 10, 12 miles. And also there was only a small hospital. I knew if I call any freaking emergency, they're going to find me dead here. Yeah. Girlfriend wasn't home. So I just ran to my car and just drove full speed to that next hospital. So in the hospital, they realized very quickly what's going on with me. Was I was hardly breathing. I told them what happened. And then this story, I talked about it quite a bit on other podcasts, where I had this other body experience where they were working on me. And I left my body and looking at the scene in emergency, and it was tumultuous, people running back and forth, and we lose him, we can't stabilize his pulse. My heart rate was at 220 for, a very long time.
Right.
So I looked at the whole thing, and I thought, okay, I'm dead.
Right.
The crap, Jesus, this is not good, Yeah. They're working on me down there. But of course I wasn't, and I cannot explain what that was, and woke up in the hospital room. So they told me that my lungs started to fill up with water, and they have to keep me here for a few days to clean out those lungs. And I got Lasix, 24/7.
Yeah.
But it was tough. It didn't get better. I was there for already like 2 weeks. Now we were about 1.5, 2 weeks out at Olympia.
Yeah.
And I couldn't work out. All I did is, it's kind of like holding, it was in my bed. I was kind of like posing, holding my muscles, and that was pretty much it. I did continue my steroid cycle in the hospital. So about 10 days before the show, I told the doctor, I got to go. I got to compete in New York. So I lost a massive amount of weight, 25 pounds.
Right.
But I was so in my own world that I truly believed that after people having complained about me being too big at the Arnold's Classic, me not controlling my stomach, and my stomach was flat. It was really, really fat.
Yeah.
So I didn't know all this garbage about side effects from the GHs. It's what it is, garbage. So if I go to New York now, if I dial in right and present this different version of me, they're going to like that. And I already saw the headlines, like Frank saying, like, J.P. Fux vastly improved, wins Mr. Olympia title.
Yeah.
Of course, it was all in my head. And the reality is I was just skinny, thin, and there was nothing left of me. And I'm no Frank Zane, that was... That was the reality. So I flew to New York. I had to sign a release form at the hospital. I flew to New York, and I had a very tough time breathing in the airplane. I could tell there was still a film of a water film on my lungs. I flew to LA first. Took a video. The video is still all over YouTube, and funny, a lot of my fans love that version. I could go up every time I see it. This is a skinny version of me. I went to New York with my absolutely brilliant Barry DeMays last week system, and absolutely looked like crap. So when in bodybuilding is weird. I think in some way we have to be delusional in some way, because most bodybuilders, when they walk backstage, they believe in some way, doesn't matter how far off they are, that this will be great. I will be in the top 6. And it takes usually a long time, or a very special person, which I probably wasn't, to realize, Jesus, go home. This is so ridiculous. But I was considered one of the favorites. They pretty much talked about Ronnie, because he won the Night of Champions, versus Flex, Nasser, and then possibly me. So I placed 10th, which was more or less a gift. When you see pictures of myself, I could have been last place, but since I had somewhat more size than a lot of others in the comparison round, I still beat a lot of guys in a lot of poses. So they got me the direct qualifier for next year, but the game changed, so the first time I had a real health scare. Other people died around me, so I started to, the very first time I started to question, wow, I'm really going to be Mr. Olympia. Is this really worth it? So, all right, so I prepared for 99. I became more and more unhappy with everything. I became a real negative guy, and that's just deadly for that sport, So I started prepping for the 99 Olympia. My relationship fell apart after 10 years. So I decided with my girlfriend at the time, let's move to the United States. I know it was a last-ditch effort to change everything. But if you're unhappy in Switzerland, you also will be unhappy in the United States. Not change anything. So I also remember one scene I will never forget. Is constantly on my mind. In Switzerland, I had a beautiful house, countryside, but to get to a bigger gym, I had to drive about 35, 40 minutes. And I hated that. I was constantly, oh my God, I'm sure the guys in California, they live across the street, of the gym. And I'm fighting through snow here and whatever conditions and traffic to get into Zurich or Lucerne. I'm an idiot, and how can I do this to myself? And we don't have the right equipment here, and they have all the hammer strength and all this negativity. So I moved to the United States. I went to the gym every morning at 4 a.m. at the Gold's Gym. And Flex Wheeler was there with his coach, Charles Glass. So with my broken English, I asked Flex, I said, so you probably live across the street, something in that order, guy, He's like, no, I live far down in Orange County. I drive more than an hour, twice a day.
Wow.
I say, what? He says, oh, I love it. This is the best hour of my day. And it just hit me. This is all just created drama in my head, There's nothing to do with driving or not. And it just hit me. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So I saw somewhat prepped for the show, but I wasn't in shape because I was more concerned about how do I get a green card? How do we find a house? And then we had this famous photo shoot with Nasser where we worked out together. Not the famous photo shoot was 2 years earlier, but where we worked out together.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he's like, "You're not competing this year, do you?" I said, "Yeah, I am, you know." He's like, "Don't. You are totally out of shape."
Right.
So I not even had a real diet in place. I was just like eating some days more, some days less, some days more. It's totally chaotic.
Yeah.
So I contacted the Weider office and said, well, it's just too much with the moving and all the stuff. And I just, tough time getting in shape. I would rather skip this year. So I heard back from the law office, from his lawyer, that if you don't compete, you're out of contract.
Right.
I really needed that contract. I just moved to the United States a few weeks before.
Yeah.
Without contact already, I had a contact with a lawyer, an immigration lawyer, and he said, you need that contract because we can apply for an EB1 visa for people with special abilities.
Yeah.
But you need that contract. Without that contract, there's nothing I can do for you.
Right.
You know? So that was probably one of the hardest decisions in my career. You know, should I go on stage out of shape?
Yeah.
Or forget about the America dream? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very sad. You know,
Yeah.
I was eating pretty much to my whole diet, very extended stomach, no interest of being in stage, no, totally worst experience of my life. You know, actually was Jay Cutler's first Mr. Olympia. He placed like 15, I placed 16.
Yeah. Right.
So I didn't really, after that, have any really motivation to continue. Ronnie won second Olympia. I knew my physique really was changing, you know, so I knew to kind of go on a longer break, remodel my physique to where I was, and then come back and beating Ronnie Coleman. I realistically knew this is kind of pretty unrealistic at this point.
Yeah.
Also, I wasn't strong anymore. Suddenly, I think it was the long-term use of steroids. So it's just my strength wasn't there anymore.
Right.
And I saw him on a photo shoot doing right in front of me, doing the most incredible stuff, you know, on a T-bar and the kind of stuff I did a few years before that.
Yeah.
So here I was, you know, I still needed the contract, but I didn't really want to compete anymore. So I used excuses from year to year. 2001, I prepared for World Championship, Pro World Championship in Rome. Again, used every excuse in the book to get out of that. And the incredible thing, Joe Weider kind of stood by me for some reason.
Right.
You know, he was such a fan of mine in the first few years. I was also one of the first guys who got a 4-year contract.
Right.
96, and he just kind of stood by me, and I started to build a personal training business which worked very, very well. So financially I was doing very well, and the Weider contract. I did occasional guest posing here or there, but had no interest in competing anymore.
Yeah.
So he started to really put pressure on me about you have to go on stage.
Yeah.
And the green card just went on forever. So I needed to keep the contract. So I went to this, I prepped for the Night of Champions. The German media really picked it up as this duel between the best German-speaking bodybuilders, Markus Rühl versus Fux.
Right.
No, I just prepped, but I looked okay, but yeah, I wasn't great.
Yeah.
Then that accident happened, you know, so...
Yeah.
Which was a product of not being serious anymore. It's just, it was
Right.
not a weight I had any problem handling through 90% of a year.
Yeah.
You know, was not focusing anymore. And then, as you guys know, the photo shoot was over.
Yeah.
And I was called back, and it was kind of my muscle were cooling down. So then this accident happened. And that's kind of where, when you asked me the question, you still had the question, what happened to your competition career?
Yeah.
So that was pretty much it. I competed one more time, simply for contract reasons.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like the story of my competitions. Yeah.
Okay. So if we could, Jean-Pierre, because I know that the listeners will be really interested in that, because I mean, you were absolutely huge. So, I mean, I lived in America for a while and I trained at Gold's. I never, unfortunately, I never actually saw you. I saw a lot of the other guys, but I never saw you at the time. But anytime I saw you on videos, say like the Battle for the Olympia 96 and things like that, you looked like you trained in kind of a high intensity manner, but I don't know whether that was the case. I know it showed you doing more than say 1 or 2 sets at times, but you looked to train very, very hard on a lot of the sets, with 4 reps and partials. And so I just wondered if it was what sort of style it actually was. Was it a high intensity style or?
Well, we all started, especially where I grew up, with a pyramid system.
Okay.
Simple, 4 exercises, 4 sets.
Yeah.
I was always big into reading about other training systems, because it was a time, probably much more than now, where there's a lot of different training styles came up. Yeah. I remember very popular, it was a Bradenkamp system. We can get to that a little later. Then the heavy duty system, the Arthur Jones theories, I read all of them.
Yeah.
And I did notice that there was the first big change, that my shoulders I needed massive shoulders, just the way my physique is, so I'm no Flex Wheeler in the midsection. So I need absolutely massive shoulders, and my shoulders were one of the parts which were not growing.
Okay.
So I looked around and said, who has this chest shoulder great combo the way I like it? And I saw Ron Love. I absolutely his chest shoulder combo. And I read somewhere that he trains them together. So he said, if you train chest shoulders together, you only need very, very little shoulders. Yeah. Because every chest exercise already is a shoulder exercise. And then if you train it together, you have after that many, many days till you train chest shoulders again. So you grow when you rest.
Yeah.
And that totally, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Grow in the gym. That's what I thought.
Most people think, isn't it? Yeah.
So I remember I switched to training on Wednesdays, chest shoulder together. And he also said something, be very, very careful. Or I read somewhere that the triceps don't interfere with your chest shoulder workout. Make sure at least 72 hours before that you don't train triceps. Yeah. So I trained my chest still with the pyramid system, but then only did about 6 sets for shoulders.
Okay. And
my shoulders massively changed in a very short time. There was around between Mr. Universe and Arnold's Classic, somewhere in that. So I felt like if that works so great for shoulders, maybe I can just reduce the volume everywhere.
Yeah.
And also with the pyramid system, I always found myself not giving everything in every set. I was kind of almost holding back in the first couple of sets. So I felt like, well, let me just warm up and then do 1 or 2 sets.
Yeah.
It was pretty much, although I did read the Manson theories, I did not quite buy into it 100% that 1 set per body part. I'm still not certain all the way to today if he really did that. But it makes sense that a body with many different components to only do 1 set.
Yeah.
So I got to the next closest. So I kind of cut my workouts in half.
Yeah.
So I did still 4 exercises, but only like 2 sets.
Okay.
And for back a little bit more. For back, I visited so many different components. I went to 6, 7 exercises with only 1 set. But I wasn't certain, but it did kind of seem to work.
Yeah.
One day I was driving to Munich to visit Andy Münzer.
Yeah.
And Andy Münzer, I started already talking in German magazines about that I'm working out 40, 45 minutes. And I knew this Dorian in England does something related, but I wasn't certain exactly, and I wasn't also certain if it's true. Yeah. And as I was visiting Andy, he's like, is it true? I'm reading this stuff about 45 minutes and only 6 sets, because I work out 6 hours a day.
Wow, right.
So I was like, oh, no. Yeah, so it was kind of really uncertain. Should I go back to I'm still uncertain in some degree today, so what's the best system is, you know. But I did grow, and as I was reading more and more about Dorian, I felt confirmed, that this is the right to do it, and I had the ability to really, really train hard, to put everything into a set. I was so sore for days afterwards, so that's how I came to more change from a pyramid system in the mid-90s to a hit style kind of system.
Okay.
Then in 98, I started to feel a few little things. My patella tendon started to hurt.
Okay.
I had to kind of train my legs a little lighter. I remember having a talk with Lila Brada in Brazil. I was guest posing in Brazil. He was there for his supplement company. And he said, you don't need all this heavyweight stuff. And, just you can do more reps, you can squeeze more. And, So I tried that with the legs, go back to more kind of a pyramid system, but not holding back in certain sets, just kind of like go a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
Totally didn't work for my legs.
Right, okay.
Totally didn't. When I saw Chris Lunt for the next photo shoot, he's like, did you change something with your legs? I like, yeah, good. You like it? He says, no, it's smaller,
All right.
So I kind of really worked better for me, loading extreme weights up. And I mean, loading extreme weights never meant to have bad form.
No,
That's wrong. And I still believed in the theory of controlling your negative at any time and having a 3 or 4 second negative motion. And I believe still in all of that. But that's kind of the results then kind of showed me that the hit style system is the best for me.
What sort of rep range were you using, Jean-Pierre, when you were doing that, like that one set and giving it everything what sort of repetition range was it?
I would say 80% was 8 to 12 reps.
Yeah.
So that was, again, Arthur Jones' theory.
Yeah.
I did build in drop sets.
Yeah.
I never liked light sets where I do 25 reps with a light weight. It didn't make any sense to me that the first 18 reps are pretty much, don't mean much,
Yeah.
So I did drop sets more and more often.
Yeah.
And occasionally I pushed it to 3 or 4 reps.
Right.
So when I really felt it, when the day was right, so last exercise, every other back workout was deadlift. Every other back workout, I did deadlifts at the end for 1 set or maximum 2 sets. So I did push it quite there often to 4 repetitions.
Yeah. Okay.
And the squats, but I'm aware of the danger of it, and you have to be very, very careful.
Yeah.
And rarely, every other week or so, I build in a light set of 50 reps or so, where I just bring it. But it was more as a pre-exhaust.
Right.
So I couldn't do every Monday morning 700-800 pound squats.
Yeah.
So I just did a pre-exhaust set on the leg extension and then went to the squat rack. So I could achieve the same effect with slightly lighter weights.
Yeah.
I would say 8 to 12
is about
minimum through the board 80% of my exercises. Yeah.
Did you use cardio work sort of off season as well as pre-contest, or what was sort of your cardio schedule?
As I grew up, cardio was a no-go. I remember that gym I was working out. There was one old bike in the corner, and I did ask the guy who did the first workout with me. I did ask, so what about cardio? He said, you will lose all your muscle.
Stay away from it.
Touch your bike, lose all your muscle. And I never seen anybody doing cardio, but then in the 90s, people did more and more cardio. So I did cardio do the whole year. I did do 4 times 40 minutes a week, very light cardio.
Yeah.
And it just made sense for health reasons. for my heart. And I even went beyond that. I always wanted to make sure, as I use that heavy duty system or a version of it, that I have the ability to really go to the max in each set. Because I did realize, working out occasionally with other people, that they didn't have the ability or the stamina to even go where you have to go. They couldn't cover after the sets. So I knew to be able to reach my maximum heart rate is very, very important. I remember I watched on TV, I watched one of my heroes, Tony Rominger. He was a bicyclist. He won several Vueltas, Giro d'Italia, placed second at the Tour de France, I think, a couple of times. He broke the world record 1 hour indoors. And they were talking that he's able to be like 20 on at his maximum heart rate, like 190, 195 for the whole hour. So I remember as he came off the bike, broke the world record, he got off the bike and all the TV cameras were waiting, and he answered questions immediately to in 7 different languages. So it's still impressive. So I decided when I do my cardio twice in a half an hour, if I did half an hour, or 3 times in 40 minutes, I will push very quickly to my maximum heart rate. Very quickly, so I stay in my 130, my fat burning zone, and then quickly I push up, but just for about a few seconds, and then go down again, So I did that pretty much all year.
And did you change that pre-contest? Did you do more than 4 times a week, or did you keep that?
Pre-contest I went to 6-7 times, yes.
Okay. So if we could then, Jean-Pierre, what was your nutrition plan? Because again, you were huge. So did you eat a massive amount of carbohydrates, and what did you do to achieve that?
I was always kind of a little bit into eating according to the blood type. I read a little bit about that. And unfortunately, I was more staying with that when it came to my protein and fat sources, not so much the carb sources. Since I'm a type O positive, I knew I eat meat. I need meat. I can eat all the animal proteins. So I ate pretty much daily. I ate red meat, chicken, fish, eggs, all of that stuff, protein powders. I was always eating a healthy amount of fat because I just couldn't eat that many carbs. So, so also as a kind of blood sugar control, I had a lot of flaxseed oil, stuff like that, pretty much with every meal. The big mistake I made was with the carbs. I did not know back then that wheat products in the long run could create a problem with visceral fat. I was big into pasta. I was a big pasta eater, Pasta, bread, I tried to kind of not eat too much, but I ate bread weekly, So pasta, I would say daily. So I believe that was responsible for building up this visceral fat over my organs and then having that extended look. But, as bad as that look was in 99, as I then went back to really more rice and sweet potatoes for 2001 for the World Championships in Rome, which I then didn't compete at the end, I was fat again. So there was a way to recover from it, but it was too late for me then. But I think in eating too many carbs, eating the wrong form of carbs, that was the biggest mistake. But other than that, there was no big secret,
So how many sort of times did you eat a day, and sort of what sort of volume would that? I mean, you were, I don't know what you weighed off season. You must have been 300 at least, wouldn't you? I would have thought, so minimum.
300, I was almost in shape.
Okay.
I pushed it as far as 340. It was not a great idea, but I did. So 320, 325 was pretty good shape with that weight. I ate 24/7. There's a lot of pluses and minuses when it comes to that. So my last meal midnight, which was usually salmon and unfortunately potato toast. So with soy sauce, that was my last meal. My first meal was at 4 a.m. usually. Oatmeal, eggs. So when it comes to keeping my waist down, beside choosing different food sources, it would be probably better to have 8-9 hour break between last and first meal. On the other side, how do you get that big?
Well,
you know? You have to also be careful that the single meals during the day are not too big. And I know that Jay, for example, or Ronnie, there are a lot of guys who did pretty much eating 24/7.
Yeah.
So would I do that different if I go back? I would choose different food sources, absolutely, when it comes to the carb. But I don't know if I could achieve that kind of size.
No,
Just eating from 9 a.m. till midnight.
But it's sort of every couple of hours that you ate?
No, 3 hours.
Every 3 hours, okay. And sort of your breakfast, so you said you had eggs and sort of oats. What would the quantities of that been at that time? Were the whole eggs or were the egg whites? Or
I didn't eat crazy a lot. I didn't eat more than 5,500 calories.
Okay.
So, and I also made sure it's not more than 70-80 grams of animal protein per meal. So not that I believe in it, but there was this say out there that you can only absorb 30-40 grams of protein per meal. It can't be true, or we would not have looked the way we did. But make sure that I'm not eating 100-150 grams of protein per meal. Since I ate fat with every meal, I just ate the amount of carbs I really needed to have a certain weight and look I wanted. So usually I would say 75 to 100 grams of carbs per meal. But I was a big believer in less today, but back then into this anabolic window post-workout. So I did read Dr. Levy, nutrient timing. I was really big into that drink a lot of carbs with your protein shake right after the workout. Fortunately, back then we had the normal maltodextrin. We didn't have high-end carbs like we do now. So probably possible that there was a little bit of overconsumption in that anabolic window, which was 90 to 120 minutes. Today, with my athletes, I do consume slightly more after the workout, but not much. I really try to split it out pretty much during the whole day. Yeah, that's pretty much.
So when you said you had fats with each meal, was that fat from sort of the meat you were eating, or did you add fats to that as well?
No, I did add fats to that.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay.
Oils. I used to buy a whole bunch of different oils, and then just kind of, depending on my taste, just put it over the food.
Okay.
So now I left the oil out in the post-workout meal. But pretty much, it started first of all, we started to learn more and more about how important fats are. And also started to, I was very big into measuring my blood sugar. It became a real obsession. Where is your blood sugar before the meals? Where is your blood sugar 2 hours after the meals? So I get an indication, is my food somewhat absorbing? And I just had to add some fats because it didn't affect my blood sugar, the carb. Well, I started to add on fats for health reasons, and for blood sugar control reasons. So I ate a lot of fat during the day.
And did you, because I mean, they're obsessed with it now, but sort of what was your water content? How much water did you drink? Because people now, I mean, they recommend sort of 2-3 gallons a day, which is a heck of a lot of water to drink over.
I did not overdrink, probably a gallon, but I did not measure my water in any way. So I also didn't want to flush out all the minerals, and so I did not. I seen all the time people walking around in those big freaking water. Looks like there's a water shortage out there.
So what changed pre-contest? Did training stay the same? I know you increased the cardio. What sort of changed? Training and nutrition, or did it not much?
No, it did. I mean, not the training.
No, it stayed the same.
Growing up the 80s, I think they did a lot more pre-contest. There was this 2 more supersets, 2 more repetitions. It didn't make any sense to me.
No.
Because I saw, I think from Memo Benazisa, I saw something that don't change anything, just stick with heavy as you can. And I pretty much did the exact same workouts all the way to the show.
Yeah.
Maybe there's occasional crazy stuff I did with a 50 repetition pre-exhaust set or triple sets, supersets. I did even less of that.
Yeah.
For the shows. I really was very, very mundane, sticking with my 8 to 12.
Yeah.
Kept very, very boring. So it didn't make sense to me.
That was good though, wasn't it? Because I know when I've spoke to Dorian before, Dorian said if he could have changed anything, it would have probably been how far he pushed them last few weeks, because that's where he picked up all his injuries. He were low on food, he were doing more cardio, but he still thought, I've got to keep pushing these sets further and further, and that's kind of when he hurt himself, really.
I went as far as I could, and but you did feel the last couple of weeks that it's getting slightly weaker now, and I think he pushed more than me even all the way to the end. Yes, from what I saw, so I did recognize my body gets weak, so I gotta
clever thing to do, really. Yeah. What about supplements, Jean-Pierre? Before we go into the other of the natural kind, did you use supplements much then, or?
Quickly to my diet pre-contest.
Sorry, of course, yeah. Sorry, that's me.
Growing up, I read something about the cycling diet by was this Dan Duchesne.
Yeah.
Crazy steroid guru.
Yeah.
And it was, I didn't read it myself, but my workout partner was really into his theories about an 11-day cycle where you eat different every day when it comes to cycling the carbs. So my workout partner, Danny was his name. He was not a talented bodybuilder, but he was so enthusiastic and he was working so hard and he really wanted to be a bodybuilder, probably just as much as me, if not more.
Yeah.
So he started prepping for the World Championships, doing this crazy 11-day cycle, where I remember on day 11, you eat everything you want. You go to a bakery, you eat the whole,
Yeah.
So I laughed. I said, this is crazy, Danny. You can't have a whole day eating bakery stuff. And, So the guy did it, and he looked fantastic.
All right, okay.
He looked absolutely phenomenal. I never often felt like the guy can ever look like that.
Yeah.
So I knew changing carbs is probably a good idea. I started to read by Rich Gaspari that he's playing with carbs.
Yeah.
So I did kind of on my own what I read from Gaspari, what I saw from the Dan Duchesne diet. I started to do 5-day cycles.
Yeah.
Where 3 days, I didn't eat a lot of carbs. I kept the fat and protein a little higher. And then on day 4, I ate a lot of carbs, less fat and protein. On day 5, a little bit less from that. And I started all over again.
Okay.
So the theory is that your body will not fall asleep,
Yeah.
So I think it's a good theory. On the other side, we take fat burners and GH. I'm not sure if that's really necessary. Burn the fat, but it made sense to me. So for my first Swiss championship, I did that. And how I started is I had a starting weight when I started my diet. It's like, okay, I'm 120 kilo. I realistically think I can bring 105 kilo on stage. I went high, higher than what realistically I probably could bring. Yeah. So how many 5-day cycles do I have till like a week before the show?
Yeah.
So how much would I have to lose per cycle to get to that?
Yeah.
And every 6 mornings, so on day 1 of the low carb day, I weigh myself again. Yeah. And if I lost too much or too little, I adjusted the carbs on day 4 and day 5. Okay. And it worked so great.
Right.
Every time I was standing on that scale, it was like up to 100, 200 grams, like right on,
Okay.
And I felt like I hardly lost any muscle.
Okay.
Really worked great.
Right.
And I'm using that with a lot of my athletes today.
Yeah.
So if somebody
do you go zero carbs then, Jean-Pierre, or is it just a very low carb and then?
I was about 70 to 100.
Okay.
On the low carb days, and then the minute I was ready, I had no fat on my lower back, which was always kind of the measurement for me when I was really ready.
Yeah.
I did the average of the 5 days and just switched to a regular diet.
Okay.
So I just calculated what's my average in protein, fat, and thing, and then went like that to the show and just making little adjustments in the carbs.
Yeah.
You know, I needed it, and I love that. I love that way. I see that especially with people who have trouble losing fat and trouble getting in shape. That it seems to work better than just.
How many carbs was it on the higher carb day?
Oh, it could start with like 700, 800, and 600 in one, but there was a phase 7, 8 weeks, 9 weeks out of the show where it could go pretty low there.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And then as you got leaner, you could increase it again.
Yeah.
It depends on the phase. But what I see on my athletes, I have guys. One crazy Viking Norwegian guy, he can go 1,900 on the high carb days.
Right.
But then others, like a Mike Cleaves, which is a great bodybuilder. He won his pro card in North American last year.
Okay.
On the high carb days, 250, 200, you know.
Okay. Yeah.
Very individual.
Yeah. So what about your supplements? What sort of, did you use many supplements sort of back then, or?
Speaking of natural supplements, yes, we had the vitamin, minerals, omega 3 and 6, and I had fibers.
Yeah.
Then I was a big believer in amino acids post-workout.
Yeah.
We had BCAAs. Today I prefer more EAAs.
Yeah.
A little bit of creatine, not much, and then whey protein powders. You know, the whey was new. It started in the 90s.
Yeah.
The studies showed that it's really much bigger of an advancement compared to the older proteins I started with.
Yeah.
We didn't have good carbohydrate powders, unfortunately. We just pounds and pounds of maltodextrin.
Yeah. People still use that a lot today, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think there's better ways, but
yeah.
The very early years was much more chaotic in that sense. You know, we had only one bodybuilding magazine in the German-speaking room, and we just bought whatever they told us to there.
Right.
So liver pills, cap, 60 to 80 a day, but that was like 80s, you know. So later on, I think I had a pretty good supplement program, not too different from what they're having today. I was never a big believer in jumping on every supplement.
Ian Harrison spoke of the liver tablets. He did 100 a day, you know, back then in early days. So listen, I know you're in a rush and it's been amazing for you to do this. I just wondered if we could just touch on, before you go, sort of the steroid side of it, because again, the size you were, people will have just greatly assumed that you took more drugs than everybody else, because that's people's thought process. So I just wondered, you know, within reason, obviously, what you can explain, what your cycles were like. Did you use insulin? Did you try it? Did you use GH? Things like that? Or was it mainly just steroids?
So, like I said before, the first 5 years, there was 4.5 years, there was absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And
after that, it was more kind of like, we didn't have complete cycles. It's like, this guy can sell me testosterone. So let's take 250 milligram a week of testosterone. Oh, this guy here can sell me DECA. You know, and there's always pharmacists coming to visit our gym, you know, usually from the western part of Switzerland. So then as I started to read more and more, you had the Green Book. I don't know if you remember the steroid.
Yeah.
So I had a mentor growing up. It was more like a mental mentor in a sense. He was a world championship in the Masters. You know, Masters started at that point, over 40. And he always warned me. He said, look, you can take more. It will work better, but just for a very short time. Getting yourself into a devil's cycle, you know, and your body gets used to it, and you will use more and more and more. You will need more and more. I said, if you take too much to become a professional, you will be worn out already. And he mentioned several examples to me. You know, he said, you should not ever take more than 500 milligram of testosterone a week.
Okay.
So during my amateur career, I had this off-season cycle where I pretty much, as a base, I had either EQ or DECA.
Okay.
300 milligram a week.
Yeah.
500 testosterone. Then the first few weeks, I threw in a few D-ball, but only for about 3 weeks. He always told me, stay away from orals when you take them just for a very short time.
Short window, yeah.
Then I went to Tren.
Yeah.
You only needed 3 a week. They were from this company in France, 78.5 milligram. They were so potent.
Like Parabolon or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I did that for 5-6 weeks or 4 or 5 weeks. And then I finished the whole thing with Winstrol. That was my common cycle. So I always felt like the first phase with the D-ball, Parabolon, I can gain weight, and then I kind of keep the weight. And then with the Winstrol, I can kind of fight on the quality a little bit. It's like normal 12-week cycle.
Yeah.
I became pro. I doubled the testosterone.
Right. Okay.
From 500 to 1,000, but everything else pretty much stayed.
The same, yeah.
Occasionally, when available, it was a little harder. I replaced the DECA or EQ with Primo. So as a base, I use Primo. I did take up to, like, as a pro, 400 or 500 a week.
Yeah, yeah.
400, but then instead of DECA or EQ, never all together,
No.
Then I fell kind of out of love with Winstrol, so I finished my cycle with Masteron instead of Winstrol.
Okay, yeah.
Other than that, it was pretty much through my whole career, that was kind of the cycle.
Yeah, yeah.
So then the last 4 weeks before the show, I switched to, I added on Anawar, I did Parabolon, and I took the Primo out.
Yeah.
Or the DECA, the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then the last 2 weeks, I took Holotestin.
Yeah.
That was pretty much what I did for my shows.
Okay.
Proviron, I always loved Proviron. I loved what it did to my body, and I loved kind of the effect it has on other steroids. So I used it pretty much on all my cycles, and the last 2 weeks before the show, I doubled it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. What about sort of the GH insulin side? Did you touch that? Were you not interested in that?
GH started as a pro, and honestly, don't know a lot of the GH I bought if it was real.
Yeah, I think a lot of that.
Don't, so when I had pharmaceutical GH, I took it to pretty much 12 weeks in my off-season cycles.
Yeah.
5 days a week, 4 units.
Yeah, right, okay. Yeah.
I never went over that.
Okay.
Never went. And then 4 weeks, 3 weeks, or I don't remember, 2 or 3 weeks before the show, I stopped it. I stopped the GH.
Right.
Insulin. So, I used the 24-hour insulin in off-season.
Okay. Yeah.
I did. So today I know today my athletes use it more depending on their early morning blood sugar. So I use it more if there is a need for it, But I did in off-season the 24-hour insulin, and I did do a shot of insulin after the workout.
Okay.
So I did go a little bit.
That's pretty low compared to what they say today, though, isn't it? People are putting quite a lot of insulin in now. So, and what you're saying actually makes when you listen to the people sort of in the know, it actually makes quite a lot of sense how you did it, really. People now just seem crazy.
The way it came about with the insulin is, nobody had an idea how to use insulin, really. So I heard rumors of people using insulin, and I did one of my trips to the United States. I asked one of the best bodybuilders in the world about insulin. And he laughed loud out, and he's like, "Oh my God, I have no clue." I said, "I tried it once. I overdosed and had to eat chocolate all night." So I feel like the Americans don't want to tell me.
Yeah.
And, many years later, as we became friends, he repeated the story to me. I said, "You remember when I was a young kid, I came up to you at Gold's and asked you, and you laughed. Is it true?" And he said, "Absolutely. We had no clue." So I went back to Europe, totally disappointed, and I asked the diabetes doctor in the gym. I said, "Did you know muscle?" He said, I don't know, but let me think about it.
Yeah.
So as he came back to me, he kind of came up with this system, when to use it, how much, how to kind of calculate it, and also depending on your blood sugar measurements, So I don't think it's too much different from today, other than they kind of use it probably more during the whole day.
Yeah.
But other than that, and I did go a little bit too high post-workout. I was first couple of years, 96, 97, I did like 7, 8 units.
Okay.
Medium fast. We didn't have the super fast ones. Medium fast covered the post-workout shake plus 2 meals.
Yeah.
And then I did go up kind of up to 20 units and just had to eat too much food. I gained all the way up to 340 pounds, and it was not pretty in a sense. It did great. So I probably should have stuck with the 7, 8 units there, so that maybe also a little bit something to do with the stomach build-up, a little bit.
Yeah, of course, excess food and things.
That was pretty much my insulin protocol, during the 96, 7, 8, 9, year.
That's brilliant, Jean-Pierre, because I know now you need to get going. So all I can say is thank you so much. The info was amazing. If you would consider coming on again at some point, because we're going to do another one with hopefully a group of you. So we get Ian Harrison on, you on, maybe a couple of other people. If you consider doing that, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, just through Facebook or...
please let everybody know, how to do it. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Listen, thank you so much. You take care, won't you? Thank you again. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.